she? It was so quiet in here, it's time to get this going. So, good evening. Welcome to the May 21st, 2015 meeting of the Planning Commission for the City of West Sacramento. Per tradition, we always begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and this evening I'm going to ask for Mr. Moore to lead us. Thank you. There's a few items on the agenda this evening, but before we get started, if anyone would like to speak on items that are on the agenda or not on the agenda, there are little forms like this that are over on the credenza. If you wouldn't mind filling one out and giving it to Katie over here, she will hand it to me. Please have it submitted to her before the end of the staff presentation on that item. You can always give it to her anytime before that, however. So, let's see. Moving on to presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the commission. I do not have any requests to speak for items not on the agenda. So correspondence and staff communications from Mr. Tilley.
Yes, good evening, Chair Liebig, members of the Planning Commission. You should have two items before you tonight. The first is a memorandum from Senior Planner Justin Hardy regarding agenda item number 2. And then you should also have a memorandum from myself regarding agenda item number 4. If you don't have any of those, please signal and we'll provide those to you this evening. With that, I'll close correspondence at this time.
Thank you. Next is disclosure of ex parte communications. At this time, commissioners should disclose any any communications they've had on the agenda. Outside communication. Alex?
I've had communication with Daniel Webster and Jan Vernick at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health with regard to agenda item 2.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay, moving on to the consent agenda.
Move to approve the minutes.
Moved by Mr. Sternfeld, seconded by Mr. Moore. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. Okay. Moving on to the regular agenda. Let's see, public hearing regarding proposed conditional use permit number 1513 for retail sales of firearms and ammunition at 2539 Del Monte Street. Mr. Hardy.
Chair and members of the Planning Commission, some brief background. Last year, the zoning administrator addressed the Planning Commission at that time for an interpretation whether firearm retail sales is an accessory use. And at that time, the Commission made the determination that it was not an accessory use, and therefore a public workshop was held to kind of determine the next stage in that process. Ultimately, out of that workshop, it was recommended that it become a use permit, and in this case as well in the M2 zone. It went on ultimately to the City Council to codify that, and so here we are today with the applicant applying for the use permit is following suit that was given by the direction of the Planning Commission. Some of you weren't on the commission at the time discussion occurred. So the applicant, Brett Dawson, name of the business is Kilroy's, is requesting the use permit as the ordinance now requires him to do. On April 9th, the applicant held a public forum open house at his location, and there were two representatives from two businesses that were in the area, and Sergeant Kinney from the police department attended. According to the information that was provided by the applicant and supporting documents, nobody objected to the project at that time. And to date, there hasn't been any correspondence opposition for the project on the letters of support that have been provided by the applicant as well. Most notably, after a discussion with the applicant, the police department, and staff, there were some condition modifications recommended. And I'll go through them one by one for you and kind of the reason why. Condition 1 eliminated all advertisement in the windows. Section 1733.050, the zoning ordinance limits the maximum to 25% already, and so that condition sort of is already maintained with the limitation in place in the zoning ordinance as it stands. Striking that condition number 1. Condition number 2 was, that was condition number 2, excuse me. Number 3, all sales and cases shall be locked separately away from all ammunition. Condition 5 sort of addresses the best practices in storage and handling of firearms and ammunition, and that condition was recommended by the police department to sort of be a catch-all to address the handling of the firearms and ammunition. So really wasn't any need to double up on that condition again. So strike number 3 is recommended. Condition number 4 was simply just revised to all ammunition shall be employee assisted except for bulk. The applicant made note that if they wanted to have a pallet of large amount of heavy ammunition, 50 pounds I think is about the weight he recommended, stated they'd be on the sales room floor, but individual boxes would be assisted by the employees to the customer. And so that was kind of the format that he was comfortable with. And condition, again, 5 was reviewed and recommended by the police department. We have Nathan Steele from the police department here as well to support staff and answer any questions regarding the project. That concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions for you.
Thank you, Justin. I have 2 questions before I turn over some questions to the commission. One is the applicant here prepared for presentation for. Sorry, I keep doing that. I have a couple questions before I ask the commission. Is the applicant here ready for or here to present to us or to ask or answer questions?
Yes, the applicant is present.
Okay. Actually, the specific question is there a presentation
From the applicant?
from the applicant?
The applicant is prepared to talk
Okay.
and discuss the project.
All right. Are there any questions of staff before I open the public hearing? Alex?
One question, Justin. In the staff report, There's mention of a public meeting and that minimal oppositions was brought forth. Even though it might have been minimal, what was that opposition? This is in B under analysis, third line.
No opposition was submitted as part of the applicant's meeting on April 9th. The concern was mainly from staff and police to make sure that we were addressed and were comfortable with the conditions on the project, but not at that April 9th meeting.
Yeah, I think also in this, item B was referring to when we were bringing this through the planning commission and council hearings to actually change the zoning ordinance last year. At that time, there was opposition to maintaining retail firearm sales in some of our retail and commercial districts. And so that's where the decision was made. We want to make some adjustments and flip those over into the industrial districts and some of the business park ones, because originally this was proposed to go right here in the central business district, and that was not favorable at the time. So everyone agreed that that was not favorable to have that in more retail areas. So that the decision makers, including this body, were comfortable with industrial districts and also on a remaining on a conditional basis.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I will go ahead and open the public hearing. If the applicant has a presentation, you'd be welcome to come up. If you're just available for questions, that's also fine.
I don't have a formal presentation, but I'd like to address the commission, if that's okay.
Okay.
This would be the, good evening. My name is Brent Dawson. Like, I guess the summary has kind of been given. From 2011 to 2014, I had a business license with the city as a firearms dealer broker. During that time, I was on Northport Drive here in the city. And as a dealer broker, it was primarily online sales or transfers from people who had purchased through online dealers, and I would take care of the state-required paperwork. In my 3 years, I transferred approximately 900 different firearms and had absolutely no issues. Never had any issues with security, inventory, never any issues with the police department. And that was just one aspect of my business. The other aspect was I dealt with a lot of law enforcement agencies as far as providing equipment and uniforms and things like that throughout the state, with some interstate agencies as well. I approached the city in, 2013 because I wanted to kind of expand my business, which involved the, basically to meet the zoning ordinance, the retail sales aspect. Despite all the other, regardless of all the other things my business was doing, just primarily with the firearms. And I had proposed a location in the central business district, and that's kind of how we got to this point through the change in the zoning. And now that I've secured a location, I think within the new ordinance, the M2 area there on Del Monte, I'd look to move forward with the business, and part of it is not 100% into firearms or ammunition. This is just, obviously, this conditional is because of that. But I would say more of my business is dealing with the uniform and law enforcement equipment, the same things that I was doing before, but just on a larger scale. However, I would like to have the ability to sell to the public, to have retail inventory, and kind of also expand that portion of the business. So that's my overall goal, and I appreciate the commission hearing this, the work that Mr. Tilley and Justin Hardy have done throughout this whole process. And I'm here to answer any questions about it. Anything that comes up, I can try and address it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dawson. I think, I was just going to say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, if you have one. Otherwise, I was going to ask Mr. Dawson to just stay ready. We have 6 requests to speak, so we might want to hear.
I'll wait then, I'm sorry.
Okay. I
will
would
be
like
here
to possibly bring you back up to answer questions after we hear from members of the community.
Okay, I'll be here for the duration.
Okay, thanks. We have 6 requests to speak at this time. So for that reason, we're going to be using the 3-minute clock. So please limit your comments to less than 3 minutes, just for fairness of others. I will call each person up one at a time. If you could, just clearly state your name, and I will also inform the next person in line, essentially, who's up next. So in order that I received them, Mr. Kevin Griffiths, and next up will be Alex Jeffrey.
Hello, Commission. Thanks. I'm Kevin Griffiths. Thanks for letting me come in here tonight to speak on behalf of Brent Dawson. I've been a city resident for the last 10 years, over the last 10 years. I'm also a law enforcement professional, so I tend to go to him when I have firearms needs. We've talked at great lengths over the last 4 years about him getting into the uniform business, being able to meet the needs of where I work and some of my buddies. Right now, currently, I have to drive over an hour round trip to get to a place to where I can buy the stuff that I need to do my job. They don't have firearms. They're just strictly a uniform store. I spend about an hour at the store because it's extremely busy, and I'd like to come someplace closer, someplace within the city that I live in, and spend my tax dollars here. So I'm hoping with that, I mean, I've known Mr. Dawson for the last 4 years. I've never seen a problem with his business. He's treated everybody with respect, and I'm hoping you guys give him the opportunity to expand his business. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jeffrey, and then John Kennedy.
Hi, my name is Alex Jeffrey. I've lived in Sacramento for the last 8 years and been working in West Sac for about 7. Excited for the chance that a gun store may be opening up locally. I haven't been able to find any gun store within a reasonable distance that's provided good service since Brent's last business. I bought many firearms from him and ammunition, and he's been a great guy to work with.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kennedy, and then Bill Kendall.
Good evening. My name's John Kennedy. I've lived here for almost 6 years. Really enjoy West Sacramento, and it's different to be on this side, having sat up there with you guys in the past. So I've dealt with Mr. Dawson for the past, I guess, 3 years, 2012 to about 2014. I would occasionally buy some things online and then have them transferred through a local dealer. Really appreciated the fact that there was a local dealer here in West Sacramento because that made things a lot easier. And I really enjoy supporting local businesses as well. So as I said, I've known him for the past several years. He's extremely reputable, a decorated veteran. I can't speak highly enough of him. So I think if there's anyone to run this type of business, it would probably be Mr. Dawson, and would strongly urge your support of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kendall, and then next up will be Kelly Rice.
Council members, my name is Bill Kendall. I am a Sacramento County resident, and I'm here in support of Brent Dawson and Kilroy's. I've known Brent for an extremely long time, and I've bought several weapons from him. I think that he's an outstanding business owner, and allowing him to open this business here would be a benefit for West Sacramento and for Sacramento County. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Rice. And then Alex Chavez-Ray.
Thank you for letting me talk. My name is Kelly Rice. I've been a West Sac resident for about 15 years. And prior to Brent coming to West Sac and learning of his business about 4 years ago, I've had to travel out into Sacramento and Elk Grove, other areas. And I would like to have the shop here local, not only for myself, but for my children that are learning how to shoot and learning how to handle guns safely for the next generation, to have a safe place that they can go and learn as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chavez-Ray.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Alex Chavez-Ray. I've been here in West Sacramento for about 15 years. My wife and I own a business here as well for the past 10 years on Jefferson Boulevard. We've known Brent for the past 4 or 5 years. Really good guy. Have used him in the past for my firearms needs, for outfitting needs, sportsman needs as well. I've never had an issue with him. He's always been very professional, and I'm just here in support of his expansion to the business and what it can do for this city, and hopefully bring some more revenue to the city as well. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes all the public comments that I have at this time. So, beginning with the commission, were there any questions that you may have of staff before we close, I'm sorry, of the applicant before we close the public hearing? I know, we're all looking at you, Charlie.
I know. Brent, I gotta give you credit for following through with this. And today I drove by your business.
Yes, sir.
And I saw something and it just struck me as being strange because I drove all the way around and in the back, all the back doors were open. And I was wondering if there was a plan, are we planning to enter through the back doors?
No, not at all. We've had
I
some-
mean, there should have, I was just thinking about it and I just don't know if it's something staff needs to think about. But I mean, the back doors shouldn't be open when the front doors are open or something. And yet I understand you gotta take merchandise in once in a while.
Correct.
It struck me as strange, and if they parked there and came that way and that was your storage area, it could involve a problem that you don't want. So
Correct. So I have a security plan worked out.
I figured you
The
did.
the entrance will be, the customer entrance will be the front. Still have to work out with our carriers like FedEx and UPS. They're pretty flexible with delivery times for when we're not open. It's kind of those things that I'm working on, kind of in motion. But as far as the building security, the only entrance will be the front. All the back will be secured. There's besides, there's alarms, there's cameras, there's reinforced doors, I could go into detail, but that's.
No, it was just something I saw, and I
Okay.
thought you should be aware, you know, I mean, if you were ever gonna have a problem, you gotta secure the front somehow, or, you know, if you're gonna take deliveries in the back, whatever. I don't know what to tell you, but it just seemed like it could be an issue, but there is no issue at this point.
Okay, sir.
Okay?
Thank you.
That was my comment, thank you.
Are there, Ms.
I
Lepore?
have one question for you. I noticed it's, this retail space is about 2,500 square feet. Is that right? Am I being
The
that correct?
entire, my entire building, it's 2,500 total. Of that, they've included the exterior, which is, so technically it's 2,375 with about 850. That'll be the retail showroom. The rest is a warehouse area in the back where we'll have storage. I have some personal storage, and then we have a few, equipment machines and things like that back there, so.
So are there plans to expand the retail?
At this point, no, but in the near future, no. But I would like to make it a little bit larger down the road as things progress, so.
Okay.
Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for deliberation and questions of staff, if there are any. Ms. Lepore?
So I apologize because I wasn't at the previous meetings when it was discussed, but are there any conditions that were discussed to allow or not allow the retail, the 850 square feet to expand, like into the warehouse side or?
No, the conditions didn't address the expansion. It was just either the use permit was permitted for the retail sales of the firearms, or it wasn't. It was one, all or nothing. There wasn't any discussion about a certain amount of square footage specifically just for the retail portion of the firearms.
And any expansion into the warehouse area for additional retail is going to need a modification to this use permit, should it be approved, and also tenant improvements, because that'll be a change of occupancy. Mr. Dawson does have a tenant improvement permit in for review at this point in time, which is sort of pending tonight's hearing. So the improvements to, that is shown on the floor plan here in attachment 2 are still need to be completed.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, seeing no other comments, I will seek a motion. I would remind the commission that the motion needs to address modifications to the conditions as presented by staff. Anyone?
No.
I will
Mr.
make the
Chairman,
motion.
I'd make a motion that we affirm the recommended action along with the amendments that were sent to us tonight by staff for the conditions.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Moore.
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Tumber. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, passes. Mr. Tilley, would you like to read the statement of appeal?
Yes, any interested party may appeal the decision of the Planning Commission in this matter to the City Council by filing a written appeal with the city clerk within 15 days of tonight's action, and that appeal must be accompanied by the appropriate filing fee.
Thank you. While there's shuffling about in the audience, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Ms. Lepore, who is joining us for the first time this evening as our alternate commissioner. First time our commissioner has ever had an alternate, so welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda is public hearing regarding the proposed Napa Village tentative subdivision map, 5078 at 841 Bright Avenue and 1444 Hobson Avenue. Ms. Allen.
Good evening, Chair Liebig and members of the commission. This project is a tentative subdivision map application for the creation of 23 lots ranging in size from 5,032 square feet to 14,004 square feet from 2 parcels which total 4.11 acres. The project is an infill development project in the Bright neighborhood. In 2014, the applicant originally applied for a tentative map to divide one 3.69 acre parcel, and the commission approved that project last December 18th. After approval of the original tentative map, the applicant decided to add 3 new lots from the parcel that's located adjacent to the project at the corner of Bright and Hobson. The majority of the project would be accessed from a newly created cul-de-sac, which will be a public street, and the 3 new lots would take their access from either Bright Avenue or Hobson Avenue. The site does contain numerous trees of varying sizes, the majority of which are valley oak trees. When we did the original map, we asked the applicant to have an arborist report prepared, which was done, and when they came in with the new map, we asked that they revise the report to add the new trees on the new lot. The revised report examined the overall health of 34 trees, 16 of which are heritage-sized oak trees. Of those trees, the report states that 5 are in poor condition, 2 are rated in poor plus condition. These 7 trees, along with 4 additional trees which are rated fair minus to fair, are shown slated for removal. There are also 2 very large oak trees located off-site, but which have drip lines that overhang significantly onto lot number 10. Because of that, we have added a condition of approval, which would prohibit structures being placed within the drip line of either of those trees. On the new lots, tree number 499 is a very large heritage oak tree located near the boundary of Bright Avenue and Lot 22. The sidewalk for this project has actually been adjusted at the recommendation of the engineering division to be located a greater distance from the trunk to provide for the safety of that tree. Utilities are not undergrounded in that location, and the utilities currently do run through the crown of the tree. This has been discussed with the city arborist, who has indicated that undergrounding of the utilities can safely be accomplished by using a horizontal boring technique at a depth of no less than 6 feet, and a condition of approval has been added to address this. Tree number 49 is also a very large heritage oak, and it sits near the boundary of lots 22 and 23. The current plans show building footprints within the drip line of this tree, but staff has added a condition of approval which prohibits the building footprints to encroach into the drip line of that tree, and that can be addressed at the time building plans are submitted for the project. California, as you're well aware, is now in its 4th year of drought. On April 1st, Governor Brown issued an executive order which directs the state board to impose water restrictions to achieve statewide 25% water reduction on potable water use in the state. Because of that, West Sac has been ordered to reduce water usage by 28%. Per the governor's order, new residential developments will be required to irrigate landscaping with only drip or micro spray systems, which effectively could mean that turf might end up being effectively prohibited only because it's very difficult to water that kind of landscaping with a drip system. The city does have an urban water plan in place, which is also being used to address the drought conditions. Staff does want to stress that although there are water-saving measures that have been put into place, that this has not in any way created a moratorium for building within the city. Staff is recommending approval of this project. The applicant is here in the audience and is more than happy to answer questions for you. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Kathy. Are there any questions of staff before I open the public hearing? No? Okay. At this time, I'll open the public hearing, and if the applicant is here and would like to speak. Bob?
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Steve Norman. I'm with CNA Engineering, and I'm here this evening representing my clients who are here in the audience. We basically we concur with all the conditions in the staff report, and just here to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions of the applicant?
Actually, I do have a question. Have you met with all the neighbors there?
I have not, no.
Has anybody?
I'd have to ask the client. Have you met with your neighbors? I don't,
I was kind of curious. I mean, it would seem almost imperative that you meet with your neighbors and how you were going to present the fence lines to go up against all the neighbor properties.
Mhm.
I mean, are you tearing down all the neighbors' fences? Have you addressed these issues? Is there any high, are we higher on your property than their property or vice versa?
Oh.
Do we know that?
Originally, the tentative map that had 20 lots was approved, and we just kind of, used the same, assumed the same conditions that were approved by that 20-lot one, when we just kind of added the 3 lots at the corner. The property's relatively flat. I don't have any big, large grade differences where I think we need retaining
I
walls.
didn't see any, but I was curious how you're going to address some of the issues, like, you have the apartment complex, you've got those people, what kind of a fence you're gonna do, they have a fence already there.
Yeah,
That's not sufficient for a residential area. And then you have the school that you're dealing with, and then you have all the different fences from all the different residents.
Yeah, there's some older homes, older stuff
Yeah,
around there.
and some of the
Yes.
fences are new and some of them are old. I just
Right.
didn't know how you were gonna deal with all those issues.
Well,
Normally, people meet with their neighbors to kind of discuss it.
Well, I know staff we didn't have that conversation with staff, and it wasn't a concern. If that would have been, I'd been happy to have my client do that. if the commission would like us to do that, we can. I didn't know that was an issue that we need to deal with.
Mona, since you're here this evening, would you mind just jumping in and clarifying whether or not there actually is a requirement for this? Or if the noticing that has been done is actually sufficient?
From a legal perspective, state law requires notices to be mailed to property owners within 300 feet of the project. Sometimes city policies require more than that. In this instance, legal noticing requirements have been met. There is no legal requirement for the applicant to be meeting with surrounding neighbors.
Right.
And even I knew that. I mean, I did, but it just seemed to me, the more I read it and the more I saw it, that there's so many people you're dealing with over there that normally people try to go out and talk to them to make sure that they're okay. No one's here complaining about your project. In fact, I think your project's a great one. I just don't know how you implement it.
Yes, I hadn't thought about the fence issue, from my.
I guess my second question may go back to Kathy, and if we do allow them to take these trees out, isn't there a requirement that they replace them somewhere in our city?
Well, there are mitigation measures included in the municipal code, which requires either the paying of a fee, which is based on the trunk height at 4.5 feet off the ground.
Right.
Which is the most common way most people mitigate, or there is X number of trees per inches as well.
The deal is at 4.5 feet, if the tree is 60 inches around, you have to provide 60 inches
Right.
worth of trees.
Right, and sometimes in like subdivision like this, the developer might put a 50-gallon, 4-inch oak tree in the front of each yard, or, just to.
Well, I
mitigate.
guess that was my second question.
And at this point,
What we're gonna do to mitigate
that's a good
that.
question. It says that we need to mitigate. It doesn't say we had to do it either way, plant or pay the fee. And I didn't have that conversation with my client, which way he's going to go on that. I'm not sure.
Okay. Kathy, what are we doing with the fences then? What are you gonna do with, you probably got a couple dozen people you gotta deal with. What are we gonna do with that issue?
I could tell you that typically when you build a bunch of brand-new homes, most developers put up fences. Now, I can't say that they're guaranteed they're going to go out and put brand-new fences on everybody's yard, but sometimes
They do
the
that.
developers do that on their own just to give a better appearance to the selling the lots. But I can't say that for sure that will happen.
Okay.
Kathy, I'm actually going to open it up to you, since if you would like to respond. I'm not sure if there is an actual answer at this time, but if you would like to, feel free to respond.
As the applicant has said, that is often a typical thing that occurs, is that it turns out almost as a perk to the existing individuals. We never had a specific conversation with the applicant on what our expectations are in terms of the fences themselves, but that would be one thing that would be addressed during the building plan check phase for the project.
One of the things we'll be looking for on this project, which goes into a little more level of detail, typically a subdivision map is actually a development plan that would actually identify the more formal where building footprints would be to help address some of the drip line issues. And we certainly could include fencing within that development plan. And as Kathy said, either through the building permit or improvement plan phase, go through fencing.
When I think, David, when I'm thinking about this, it's like the project we had in Southport, and that developer was getting ready to develop. They had a little difference in the land leveling of it. One was higher than the other. But they went to every one of the neighbors saying, we're going to put up a brand-new fence and attach your fence and make it all better. But they took the effort to go to the neighbors, and that's why, I just was curious, how do we accomplish the same thing at this level?
Well, that can still occur, maybe during the improvement plan phase. It's often a good time to do that because, when construction is getting ready to commence, It's good to make sure that adjacent property owners are aware that that's beginning. So there still is opportunity to do that.
Well, you know, this works, and I don't mean to take up this time, but I mean, in the same token, this works well when you go out and you deal with the neighbors, so if they're having an issue with dust or noise or anything, they know who to contact to get a hold of it. Normally, a lot of these developments have some sort of a meeting prior to coming here so that everybody's in line, they all know what you're doing. And then they're much more comfortable with you, and we're not receiving calls at the city, they can call you and say, hey, you know, we have an issue with something.
Yeah, yes, and I will say, I've done lots of these tentative maps, and typically neighborhood opposition or concerns will come before we get this far. We'll hear about it when it's in planning, concern, no, it's in the planning stage. And if I get calls, I usually tell my client, you know, we're getting neighbors from that subdivision, they're concerned, you might want to go over there and knock on doors. But in this case, we didn't get any calls from anybody. We didn't see any issues come up. And if they had come up, we would have addressed them. And I don't want to stand here and say, yeah, we're going to go out and build new fences for everybody all the way around the property, you know, because that's something that I don't think we need to do. I would think fences will be addressed lot by lot, depending on the condition and what's out there. And they may want to put a blue fence in, and they can knock on the door and say, hey, we're going to come back here and put a new fence in. You know, would you like to participate, or here's what's going to happen. We haven't done the grading plan yet, and if there is grade differences at property lines, we typically build into the fence, you know, a foot retaining wall or whatever, just to make up those grade changes. But those are dealt with in the engineering when we start the grading plan. And we can see what's going to happen.
Mr. Sternfeld, do you have any questions, comments? To my left?
I had a question or comment or suggestion on the trees. I don't know if you're familiar with the DNS project that just opened at the corner of P and 16th in Sacramento. It's,
Which, 16th and what?
16th and P. It's called 16 Powerhouse.
Nope, I'm not familiar with that one.
DNS are a large developer, but they had quite a few trees on the existing lot, and they were able to make benches and kind of cool little signs and you know, planters and kind of, you know, reuse those trees for other uses, and which made the neighbors happy too, so.
Excuse me?
It made the neighbors happy.
Oh, yes. Well, these are residential single-family homes, so, you know, we are going to save all those large trees, which you have. The trees that are coming out will probably mitigate, I'm sure. I'd have to ask the developer if he wants to, you know, do that on residential. Are these apartments, or are these single-family homes, or?
It's an apartment with, it's mixed use, so
Yeah.
there's retail down below.
Because when you sell these individual lots to people, people come in and kind of landscape the way they want to do their lots.
Right, I was just
So
saying
it's-
as a suggestion, if you
Yeah.
have to remove trees, it's always, it's a
Yeah,
nice
well,
gesture.
when
to
it goes through
reuse
design
them.
review, I'm sure they can condition it if they want to put some of that kind of stuff in.
Right.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
I did receive one request to speak. I know it did come in late, but given that we are talking about comments from the public, I do think it would be wise to accept it at this time. Ms. Mancha Tarico, if you could please come up, and please state your name, because I'm afraid I may have butchered that.
My name is Marcia Tarico, and my family and I are lifelong residents of Old West Sacramento. I'm living in my parents' house, and the property that he is talking about developing has been, you know, one of the reasons we chose to live there was that there were no buildings behind us. So when he says there is no objection to the project, I can't say that's true. There's concern with my neighbor on the left. There's concern with my neighbor on the right. To me, fence line is a big deal. And I want to be consulted. I don't just want something done as if my property doesn't count. The two new buildings on the left on Hobson that was totally new news to me tonight. And I'm sure my neighbors who board right up next to that are not aware of that either. So Mr. Moore's suggestion of them having to meet with the neighbors, I think is a very good one. I want somebody that I can call if I'm not happy with something that's taking place. And I don't want and I will tell you right now, the majority of fences down that line are cyclone. I don't want my fence taken down. I'll be very frank with you. And I'm not sure that other neighbors want their fences taken down, even if a wood one would be put in its place. And I think there's a lot of people who feel the same way I do. I can speak for my two neighbors. I can't speak for everybody else on the block. But I don't like the idea that we're not being consulted. And if I didn't come to the meeting tonight, I would not know that those other two houses were going to be built. And I want somebody to call if I'm having a problem, whether it be somebody they designate, otherwise it's going to be the city we're calling. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I just want to say, we'll be happy to give our number to any neighbor here that's interested to contact us.
Okay, that can be handled outside of the meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Trico. At this time, I'm going to close the public hearing. Back to my cheat sheet. And I appreciate the applicant's motion to meet with the neighbors. I think Charlie does have a good point. Often when we're talking about larger developments, the neighbors do get involved. And the project is discussed well before it gets to this point. That said, I also understand several projects move forward quietly without much community input at all. So I would recommend meetings and a little bit of public outreach. I'm not sure we should be requiring this at this time, but that's just my comment. So. Okay, comments, questions? Ms. Alex?
Just a comment on specific condition number 2. I'm delighted to see it. I presume this is a requirement under the city's existing inclusionary housing ordinance. And I remember previously, when I was on the Housing Advisory Commission, we heard staff present a proposed amendment to what at that time was the inclusionary housing ordinance. And I've lost track of that issue. Was the change adopted by council?
Yes, that ultimately came out of the housing element, and this is sort of dealing with the post-redevelopment era, because we used to have 2 separate ordinances,
Right.
one dealing with the redevelopment project area and one outside of that. So now we have one ordinance that addresses the whole city and is now a 10% requirement. And it depends on if it's a for sale or for rent project. But we look for very low and very low nowadays, no more moderate. So this is a standard condition that they'll need to comply with.
Thank you.
A lot of quiet. Okay. I actually have some questions or comments on this one. Not so much questions, but given my love for old oak trees, it is very painful for me to see that we have 2 fair or good trees coming down. That I do understand. Sometimes trees need to come down. As far as mitigation, I love the idea of oak trees in the front yard and mitigating on site. That is just a personal preference. I understand the city has its own policy, and you can work through that outside of this commission, but just saying. the oak trees on the north side of town are really great, and we are losing them here and there, sometimes for unknown reasons. So anytime we can protect the ones we have and enhance our neighborhood by planting more, I think that would be great. Okay. With that, I will seek a motion.
Could I ask one question of staff? And then
Sure.
we can- The length of this cul-de-sac is 600 feet? Is that what I'm reading?
That takes math.
Yes, and that is our maximum dead end length.
And that's the absolute maximum it can be, is
Yes.
that not correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Again, David, I've seen these projects, unfortunately, you have to have a history lesson again, but I've seen these projects go on forever, and I mean, I don't care whether it was the River Cats or it was the little subdivision, the infill subdivision in Southport, all those people met with the neighbors. None of them just came into us without having some sort of a meeting. And I just remind staff of that happens more often than not with most of these things. I'm not saying this is a reason to stop the project. I'm just saying, as a staff, you should try and remind them that they should be out in the neighborhood talking, because you don't want somebody to be argumentative over a fence. That's not what we're here for. But we are here to make sure that the neighbors are comfortable, and so I would still encourage you to try to recommend that before it gets too far along, they try to have some sort of a meeting, and maybe you could attend and help relieve some of the concerns that are there. And then I'm fully support the idea of trying to save as many of those oak trees as possible. But I don't see that in the conditions on the oak trees about, I know it's under our other rules. Is that how we just operate with the oak trees? That if they're going to take any down, then they have to replace them or pay for them? I mean, I personally would rather see them replaced somewhere.
The ordinance states that they do have to mitigate in some way if the trees are coming down and they're a healthy tree. No mitigation's actually required if a tree is a dangerous tree or is in poor condition or whatever.
Right.
And there's two options. There's either the in lieu fee, which, as I mentioned, was on a dollars per inch basis, or there's a formula, I don't remember it off the top of my head, of X number of inches.
It's pretty much inch for inch, I think.
It's a pretty substantial number, and it may be, given the size of this tree, that if they may not even be able to put that many replacement trees on the site, although if they went and put oak trees in every front yard, as Russ suggested, perhaps. But generally, they work with the city arborist on that to work out a plan for the mitigation. She oversees it, and sometimes.
Right, but if we're gonna replace them, I'd like to see them replaced in the area, over in the Bright Broderick area. And I don't know quite how we do this, but we have a school over there. They're right next to Holy Cross. They might be able to have something over there. But I just don't know. I didn't see it as a condition in here, so I guess we're just going off the ordinance itself.
Yeah, condition number 6 addresses the tree removal on this, and our ordinance refers to, it's a one-to-one relationship to replacement, and to sort of put it in perspective, a 1-inch replacement is basically what a 15-gallon tree is considered to be equivalent of 1 inch. So in this case, if we have 60 inches to replace, you're looking at 60 15-gallon trees, or looks like about 20 24-inch box trees. So it would be pretty significant replacement. So it's likely you'll probably see a combination of planting here and some in lieu fee, just practically speaking.
Okay. Mr. Sternfeld.
I'm happy to make a motion to approve this item. if it's appropriate time now.
Yes, moved by Commissioner Stormfelds,
I'll second.
seconded by Commissioner Toomber. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Mr. Tilley?
Yes, any interested party may appeal the decision of the planning commission in this matter to the city council by filing a written appeal with the city clerk within 10 days of tonight's action, and that appeal must be accompanied by the appropriate filing fee.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is number 4, the public hearing regarding Resolution 15-1PC, recommending amendments to the health and safety in public facilities and services elements of the general plan to include additional flood protection policies. And this will be led by Mr. Tilley.
Yes, thank you again, Chair Liebig. Back in March, we conducted a workshop before the Planning Commission on some proposed new policies and that we would like to put in our existing general plan related to flood protection and specifically to comply with SB 5 and related legislation. We're now back before you tonight in a formal public hearing seeking your recommendation to the City Council on those amendments, which would be done via the attached Resolution 15-1-PC. We were recommending that we would actually amend our current health and safety element to include the new policies, and would actually strike some sort of overlapping policies that are in our public facilities and services element. That way, all these policies would sort of be, grouped in the same area. The policies remain substantially as you saw them previously. And so tonight, we are seeking approval. Tonight, we are requesting you do a public hearing on this matter this evening and ultimately approve the resolution that is attached to your staff report. Would like to make note of the letter that we received earlier today from the attorneys representing the Seacon Company, which is the Newport Estates developer in Southport. They made numerous assertions in this letter that we do not concur with, so we continue to urge you to make this approval tonight so that this item can go before the City Council for ultimate action next month. And so with that, I'll close my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, David. At this time, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. However, we also don't have any requests to speak, so I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the Commission for deliberation. Are there any questions of staff or comments? Mr. Sternfeld, you look like you're ready.
I am. I just, a question for staff in regards to the letter in front of us. You mentioned that it was reviewed by staff and concurred. Does that include legal counsel staff review, or is that just, not just, but just planning staff?
No, that does include Ms. Ibrahimi from the City Attorney's Office.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore?
I only have one question, and I debated what I was going to do with this because of what we just did at the last item. And I'm reading under our policies for new development, it says EC 2.1.11. I'll let you find that section.
Can you direct us to that?
I'm on
Mr. Moore?
page 3.
Page 3 of the letter we received today?
The environmental checklist.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, some of the numbering scheme I've modified it to have it
Okay,
fit.
well, whatever mine says, it just says that new development, the city shall require evaluation of potential flood hazards. And I didn't see that in that last development. I'll wait till,
That would be included in the CEQA document.
I guess. I wanted to just read this and see how it plays out, only because I didn't understand it. Because it goes down, it says the city shall not approve any development or a subdivision or enter into a development agreement for any property within the flood hazard zone unless the adequacy of the flood protection specific to the area has been demonstrated.
Okay. Yeah, fortunately, the vast majority of our city is not in a designated flood hazard area. The vast 99% of our city is currently in Zone X. which is not a special flood hazard area. Those areas of town that are in a flood hazard generally are the waterways that we have, such as the Ship Channel and Lake Washington, you know, the actual lake itself. So the prior project is not in a designated flood hazard area.
Okay, so we wouldn't review that?
Well, it's the FEMA assigns flood zones.
Okay,
And
that's what
so-
you're talking
yeah,
about,
so
FEMA's
it's- Yeah,
designation.
FEMA's maps. So it's Zone X, you know, the more common, you know, Zone A is the flood hazard, and there's various versions of Zone A, so.
Well, it's like Natomas was an X, right?
Well, then they probably got put into A while they have that building moratorium,
Right.
and that's what they're trying to get out of now, and that's what we have been trying to
Not
avoid
get into. Yeah,
here.
but that's what we're talking about here.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so fortunately for us, you know, that's going to be a very, very limited areas, and these areas where, you know, we wouldn't be likely building anyway, because they're, you know, essentially waterways.
Okay, thank you.
That's it? Anyone over here? Thank you, David. Thank you for the document. I understand these things take a lot of work, and you've gone through probably several committees or other commissions as well as other agencies. So I appreciate all of the work that has gone into this to continue to protect our city, and I'm happy to move it forward as is. So, with that, I will, oh, nope. Yes, I closed the public hearing. Okay, now I will seek a motion.
So moved.
Moved, recommended action by Commissioner Sternfeld,
Second?
seconded by Commissioner Moore. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, passes unanimously.
Thank you very much, Commission. We'll be bringing this item forward to the council next month for hopefully final action. And I know that they appreciate the input that they received from your commission on this, as well as the others that this has been to before.
Okay, moving on to general administration, informal discussion.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.